Hello and welcome to today's episode of VIT Today's Next Step. Today we have Mr. Abhinav Chinta who has done his graduation in CS from VIT Vellore. He graduated in 2020 and is currently pursuing his master's in data science in Johns Hopkins University. So good to have you here, Abhinav. So let's
Thanks for
get
having
right
me.
into it. My first question is, when you applied for your master's, did you apply to any other universities apart from Johns Hopkins, or did you know from the start that this is the place where you want to go?
Yeah, no, I definitely applied to a lot more universities. But yeah, the reason I chose Johns Hopkins specifically was because I'm interested in natural language processing, which is an application of data science. And as it turns out, Johns Hopkins has some amazing research in that field, and they have one of the best labs in the country, like ranked in like the top five. So because of this reason particularly, I applied to Johns Hopkins. So usually, Johns Hopkins is a lot more famous for its medical school and biology related subjects. But because I kind of did my research and I found out that they were good for this particular application that I was interested in. That's why I made a point to apply to this university as well.
Okay, so following up on this, how do you think people should decide what colleges to apply to? There's not only the college pressure. There are so many countries, there are so many colleges in those countries to choose from. So how do you decide where to go?
Right. So obviously, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. You have to apply to a large number of universities. So generally, what a lot of people do is, if you're applying to, 10 universities, you apply to three ambitious schools, which you have like less than 25% chance of getting in. And these are top rated schools. And then after that, you have like moderate schools where you have like around 40 to 50% chance of getting in, and then you have a few safe schools. Like you can divide this like 3-4-3 or 3-3-4. It's up to you. And the reason you do this is because once it boils down to like raw statistics, are going to end up in at least one of the universities you apply to. So it's always the best way to diversify your options and guarantee that you're going to get into at least one university. So that's always a good choice. And as a follow up to this, I wanted to add that there are a lot of people who always face a difficulty on how they're going to choose their universities, and a lot of people get a bit too carried away by the name of the universities and how popular it is or how prestigious it is. And unfortunately, the truth is, for a master's, the prestige of a university doesn't matter as much as it would if you were to get into the same university for your undergrad. And that's just the hard truth behind it. For example, you see IIT, right? So people study their entire lives to get into IIT, but then you don't. It's kind of a big deal if you get in, but you don't hear. People don't make that big of a deal if you get in for masters. So I'm not saying it's the same thing. Uh, my master's degree is definitely helpful. It gives you highly specialized skills that you can apply into the industry directly. Or if you're interested in research, it gives you a platform to you can utilize labs and talk to professors, and obviously you're going to have great experiences. That being said, if you want to do your master's just so you can have like a, a tag of a really good university on your resume, then you're just wasting your time and a lot of money. So you can just directly go for a job instead. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so my next question is, what would your advice be for someone that is aiming for a prestigious university?
Okay. So first of all, unfortunately, there's not a lot of prestige involved for a master's university. It's not like undergrad, where students spend their whole life trying to get into one university. And think of it like kind of like IIT. People spend years trying to get into IIT, and it's kind of a big deal. But is it really that big of a deal if someone gets into IIT for masters? Just a thought. So I'm not saying that you know there's absolutely no prestige involved in getting into a good school for masters. It's just that it shouldn't be the only factor that you have in mind when you're choosing what colleges you want to apply to. So just don't choose colleges just because of the names. So I encourage people to actually do a lot of research and try and reach out. In fact, you can blindly reach out to any of the universities and their labs and their faculty if you have any questions on what kind of research they're working on or how their curriculum is. And who knows, that might even be useful for you if you actually have a successful correspondence. You can sort of mention that in your SOPs. And small things go a long way, because you're essentially showing interest in that particular university, right? So maybe the person who's reading your SOP will actually remember this. You never know. It's worth a shot. So always, I suggest people to do a lot of research before they finalize the colleges that they want to get into, because a small college which isn't that well known might have labs which are working on some amazing things, some of the best research. Then maybe a top school that's ranked number 2, but number 3 or 4 or whatever. So yeah, always do research before applying.
So I wanted to ask you, being a CSE student, how did you gain the experience and how did you diversify your portfolios so that you are comfortable pursuing a master's in data science? So how did you go in that direction?
Right. So I had to choose early on, what concentration within computer science that I wanted to get into. And it was a difficult decision, obviously, at the time, because, we're still in our undergrad. We're still learning about a lot of intricacies within, the field of computer science. There's so many things that are meant to be explored. So I started out with, learning how to program. And then I went on to like Android development. I learned Java. I did a bunch of things. And then I was fortunate enough to get an internship, and obviously this was in my second year, and it was an unpaid internship because no one pays you when you don't have a lot of work experience. But luckily, during my internship, I was introduced to Python programming and some basic data science concepts, and just working around with data sets, getting web, scraping data from the web, and then, running basic machine learning models. And eventually I worked a little bit with like text processing and natural language processing. So it gave me a good boost into data science. It showed me what, the field, what potential the field had. And I really enjoyed my internship there. So because of that, I realized this was a field that was worth diving deeper into. And ever since then, I started working more in Python, and I started applying to internships in data science specifically. And eventually I did another internship the next year, which was again in data science, and it was actually here in the United States. And so basically, there's no hard and fast rule, that you're supposed to learn Python and learn machine learning. It's just that data science is such a broad field, is that you can get in however you want, and there's just so many things to do. And so just start with whatever you're comfortable with. Start with Python and work on general problem statements. And then you can start learning, some basic machine learning algorithms, so you understand, what the scope of data science is. And yeah, and then after you have some basic knowledge, then you can choose different areas within data science that you're interested in. Like there's natural language processing, and then there's computer vision, and then there's so many other things. There's data augmentation and so on.
Right. So for you personally, did you did you dabble around in a lot of, not only inside of data science, other technologies? Did you dabble around, say, blockchain or, web development? So did you like try everything and then settle on data science, or did you know that,
Yeah,
data
so
science is
that's
something?
what I meant. Initially, like, it's difficult for someone to like directly realize that they're passionate about one different thing. So obviously, when if you're in computer science, then you just have to try different skills and
Right,
just
right.
find whatever Yeah. So like I said, I started out with the first semester course, which was in Python, then it was in C++, and then because C++ was object oriented, then I moved on to Java, which is completely object oriented, and then from Java, I went into Android development. But then I after like 6 months of doing Android, I realized it was actually a lot more difficult and a lot more painful than I expected because there were way too many intricacies involved. And even though Android was kind of a big deal, there were other web development platforms that were overtaking Android slowly, like Kotlin, for example. So I didn't really see a lot of potential in Android. So that's why I tried to move on. I tried to find something else that would be more suited for my interests.
Okay, so I had a look at your I looked at your LinkedIn and I saw you've done a lot of Coursera courses. So, and apart from these courses, you've done a lot of internships as well. So, you've done knowledge and you've gained experience. So, what do you think was more important, getting the knowledge or getting the experience?
So honestly, Coursera courses, they're good, but adding it on your resume does not change anything. So in fact, there's not really a point of adding it. It's You can, because it's there, you add it, but it's not gonna, increase your chances of getting in anywhere. But yeah, internships definitely do help, mainly because uh, industry knowledge is something that you can't learn within the four walls of a classroom. So once you actually do an internship, you understand how there's a problem statement and how you're going to approach it and how you're going to deliver a end-to-end product to the clients and how it's actually going to solve their problem. And you deal with a lot more issues than what we are usually used to dealing with in classrooms or in our exams or whatever. So yeah, internships are definitely really helpful and useful also, because my end goal, like for me particularly, isn't a future in academics. I eventually, after my master's, I will want to do a job, right? So definitely my internship experiences help me in this regard.
Right. So, talking about internships, when you used to apply for internships, what would you prefer? Like, would you prefer the job profile the company was offering, or the actual company which you were applying to? So, what was your like preference?
So it's kind of weird because I've interned in two companies, and I've also interned in one startup which is actually from VIT called Vicara, which was founded by two of our co-founders. They were my super seniors, so they were like 4 years older than you guys. But although I was literally paid in pennies, in fact I wasn't even paid for like the first few months I was there. But for some reason, I enjoyed the work I was doing in that startup in like this tiny incubator cell in TT a lot more than any of my other internships. And that's just because of the nature of the work. When you're working with people, with friends who you're actually close with, and it's like you have a complete idea of which direction the company is headed or the startup is headed, and the work that everybody does in that tiny room, how it's going to benefit the company. So I felt like the work I was doing there was a lot more meaningful. I wouldn't say meaningful, it was just a lot more impactful towards the company than compared to working for a much bigger company where it's that's just the nature. If you're working for a huge company like Google or Facebook or something, what's going to happen is you're going to have projects, and you might not even understand how the outcome of this project is going to impact the company as a whole. That's just the nature of how big companies work. So I feel like that's one thing where I really preferred the experience of working in a startup. And that's why I also want to advise people who are also looking for internships to even if you don't want to work full time in a startup, but I highly recommend working for a startup at some point of time in your life, because it's such a new experience that I definitely think everybody should try at least once.
Okay, so in college, like inside of VIT, what are all the extra things you did apart from say academics to give you that kind of boost in your application? And also like how important are extracurriculars in your application when you're sending it to other colleges?
Okay, I'll be completely honest. Extracurriculars do not play a big role in your master's applications, and that's just the nature of it. If you were in your if you were applying to these universities for your undergrad, then it would probably make a big deal because students in the US, they learn instruments, they do community service, they go to MUNs, they do all these things for years and years in preparation for their applications. But for masters, it doesn't matter that much. I'd say if you want to pursue extracurriculars, then you should just do it on your own interest. Don't take up any activity just for the sake of adding it in your resume, because it's not going to help you and it's just going to waste your time. And definitely, I'm not saying that it's not useful for your master's applications, but I'd say the only situation where it would be used is to slightly boost your chances, or if there were two applications that were nearly identical in terms of the scores or the chances of getting in, then maybe extracurriculars would be used as a tiebreaker. This isn't a rule or anything. It's just something I believe, but I do not think, honestly, that extracurriculars play a huge role. So you don't have to worry about that. Like if you have a strong CGPA and you have strong research, strong GRE, then just go for it. Apply to whatever colleges you want.
Okay, so now the shift from VIT to Johns Hopkins, it must have been a big difference. So culturally, academically, whatever. So how did you cope with that? What were the things that you experienced that were new and all that?
Right. So unfortunately, right now all my classes are online. So I haven't really gotten a chance to go to campus and meet people and just see how the classrooms are. Anything, everything's over Zoom. So in that way, I can't answer the first part of the question yet. But definitely in terms of academics, though it's a different experience. I feel like in VIT what happens is we have our classes, and then we have our cat 1, cat 2. It's like we waste the first month of the semester just messing around, and then cat 1 comes around and we study for like a few days before that. And then you have like DA1, DA2 in between, and some people do it, most people copy, and everyone just gets away with it. And that's completely normal. That's just the way things are here. I'm not I'm not saying that's how it's supposed to be done. I'm just saying that some of us are complicit. So but then the thing is, it's completely different once you come here in the US. It's like exams don't really have as big of a weightage as the assignments do. And the assignments here are a lot more frequent. So almost every week we have assignments due, and they're usually a lot more difficult than digital assignments. Like um, even if you Google some of the questions, you're not going to get any answers. But then one thing that I really like about the assignments here is that it's like the professors, they give you enough clues and enough breadcrumbs so you can sort of learn concepts along the way. And by the time you're actually finished with the assignments, you'll feel enriched. Like you'll have a solid understanding of the concepts, which I really enjoy.
So now coming to data science, I wanted to ask you how what's the difference between computer science and data science, and is there any difference between the field requirements of the two?
Yeah, so computer science is a science that basically deals with computers and computers alone. So when you have programming languages, and you have databases, and you have computer architecture, and the low-level programming of the chips and the components of the computers, and you also have system designs and computer networking. But on the other hand, data science is more of a combination of computer science and mathematical concepts like statistics and calculus and linear algebra. So data science has actually been here for quite a long time, but the only problem was like maybe around 20, 30 years ago, they didn't have the computational power to actually execute a lot of these algorithms and data science topics that they had. So which is why a combination of these two things has really become a lot more prevalent in the past, 5 to 10 years. So the difference between a data scientist and a computer scientist is computer scientists essentially build applications from the ground up, or they build applications, and they host servers, and they host websites, and there's not like one particular skill that computer scientists do. It's all over the place. And I could say the same about data scientists, except everything a data scientist does revolves around data. So there's a saying that the work a data scientist can do is only as good as the data he works with. So if the data is good, then the data scientists can basically, the possibilities are endless. Whether it's developing machine learning algorithms or statistical models to you have Amazon Assistant and Alexa that can listen to you and reply to you, and you have chatbots, and you have machine learning models that are able to predict if someone's going to have cancer or something like that. So the possibilities are endless. But the one big difference between computer scientists and data scientists are like, because of how popular machine learning and deep learning has become in the past couple of years, there are a lot of not even a lot, like most computer scientists are actually dabbling in this field. They're trying out machine learning models, they're trying to deploy things on their own, which is amazing. But then the only problem is you have a problem statement and you're using a machine learning model, but then you're not really using it from scratch. You're applying, you're importing a library from somewhere else, and you're just writing a few lines of code and hoping things work. And if it doesn't, you just change a bit of the hyperparameters, and eventually you're going to end up with a pretty good model, 95, 96% accuracy. So, now you might be wondering, what the problem is. Computer scientists are able to get a model with 95, 96%. So why do you need data scientists? But then, in the real world, a 5% error in accuracy is actually a lot. Maybe for our homework and assignments, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're trying to predict if someone is going to get cancer or not, you can afford to make that level of that. You may have that margin of error. So this is where data scientists come in. So instead of blindly applying machine learning models and hoping something sticks, data scientists usually work closely with the data, and they try to understand how the algorithms work and how the algorithms can be tailored to fit the data that they're working with. And even once they fit the model, right, data scientists, they spend sometimes months trying to optimize the algorithm to get the best possible accuracy. And it's not just trying a bunch of different values, as they actually have different topics within the scope of optimization that help people get the best possible accuracy and find the best solution for complex equations.
Okay. Okay, so the last question I want to ask you is, what one advice would you like to give to your juniors who want to go for higher studies abroad?
Right. So the first thing I wanted to talk about CGPA a little bit, because I myself, I'm not a 9-pointer, and I applied to extremely competitive programs that required, I wouldn't say required, but usually prefer students with a 9 CGPA. So coming from a CS background, I applied to a lot of CS programs for masters, and I applied to a mix. So a lot of CS programs and a lot of data science programs. So the problem right now is because CS and the IT industry is booming, it has the most number of jobs. And because it has the most number of jobs, it becomes the most competitive program to get into for undergrad or for masters. So because of that, even if you have a good profile, right? But if you're lacking on something like your CGPA or your GPA, then there's a good chance that top universities aren't even going to look at your application. And that's just the nature of it because it's so competitive. I wouldn't blame you or I wouldn't blame the program itself, because if there are 60 seats in a program and they're receiving over 3,000 applicants. In fact, I got an email. One of my rejection letters literally stated that they got more than 3,000 applications. So when they have that many applications, they don't have the time or resources to go through each and every application. So they need some sort of filter to get the best possible pool, and then from that pool they begin selecting. So that's when CGPA comes into factor. So yeah, so obviously computer science is the most competitive, and if you're applying to top schools, then there's a good chance that you have to be a 9-pointer, right? Or if you're not a 9-pointer, then you have to outshine all the other applicants in one way or the other, whether it's amazing internships or like amazing publications in IEEE or top-notch journals around the world. And after computer science, then you have other core subjects, programs like mechanical engineering, then you have electrical, and then slowly down the ladder you have chemical, and then civil. So these are traditional programs. They've been tried and tested for the past 20, 30, 40 years. So luckily for us, right, in the past 5 to 10 years, there have been so rapid developments in the industry right now that there's a demand for highly specialized skills. So that's why to meet the demands, a lot of these universities have created new programs for students, and these new programs are usually interdisciplinary. So which means they're created with the help of 2 or more different departments. For example, data science, right? Data science programs are usually in collaboration between the math department and the CS department. Similarly, robotics is a combination of computer science and mechanical. And HCI is a combination of cognitive science and computer science. And similarly, biomedical and biotechnology are also examples of these interdisciplinary programs. So the advantage of these programs are they're new. So because they're new, they're not as tried and tested as the other core programs that I've been talking about. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because because there's a reason you've taken an interest in these, right? Because there's a demand in the industry. So once I definitely recommend trying new programs like this, because you're definitely going to have a good time, because they're very, very strong programs in universities, and you're definitely going to have a lot of opportunities in the industry.
Okay, that was a nice set of questions. Thank you so much for coming to the show, and I've certainly learned a lot myself. So that was it for the interview.